Did you know that one U.S. president loved to eat cottage cheese with ketchup? It's true. From George Washington's hoe cakes to Joe Biden's ice cream obsession, we're about to take you on a mouth-watering journey through American history, one presidential meal at a time. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great! Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. Let's start our journey with the man who couldn't tell a lie but could definitely tell a good breakfast. George Washington's morning routine included a humble dish that's practically disappeared from our tables today. What was this simple meal that fueled the father of our nation? Turns out, George Washington was a big fan of hoe cakes. These weren't your typical pancakes, folks. Hoe cakes were made from cornmeal and were a staple in early American cuisine. Picture a crispy golden disc, hot off the griddle, ready to soak up some butter and honey. Washington loved these so much, they became known as George Washington's breakfast. It's like the presidential seal of approval, but for pancakes. But Washington's taste wasn't limited to breakfast. His White House feasts were a carnivore's dream, featuring pork, goose, and mince pies. These meals reflected the agricultural bounty of early America, showcasing the flavors that were shaping our young nation's palate. Now, let's hop over to John Adams. If Washington's breakfast was all about simplicity, Adams's dinner preferences were a hearty nod to his New England roots. His favorite? A good old-fashioned New England boiled dinner. This wasn't just any stew, mind you. We're talking about a rich, savory pot filled with beef or pork, surrounded by a medley of vegetables. It was comfort food at its finest, and a testament to the regional flavors that were defining American cuisine. But hold on to your taste buds, because we're about to take a sharp turn into sweetness. Remember when we hinted at a founding father with a serious sweet tooth? Enter Thomas Jefferson, the man who brought a touch of French flair to the presidential palate. Jefferson had a passion for French vanilla ice cream that would make even the most devoted dessert lovers green with envy. This wasn't your run-of-the-mill ice cream either. Jefferson's version was known for its rich, thick consistency, a true indulgence. He likely picked up this taste during his time in France, and may have even adapted a recipe from his French chef. Talk about bringing your work home with you. Jefferson's love for this creamy treat wasn't just a personal quirk, it actually played a role in popularizing ice cream in America. Imagine being a guest at one of his dinner parties, finishing off your meal with a scoop of this exotic dessert. You'd be the talk of the town. From ice cream to squirrel stew, the range of presidential food preferences might surprise you. As we move into the 19th century, we'll discover how one president's favorite dish perfectly captured the growing sophistication of American cuisine. But first, let's talk about a presidential meal that could have come straight from the backwoods of Kentucky. Ever heard of Jezebel sauce? It's not something you'd typically associate with a president, but Andrew Jackson was a big fan. This sweet and spicy concoction, made from apples, pineapples, and pepper, was the perfect accompaniment to his favorite tenderloin. Jackson's taste for this dish shows us how American cuisine was evolving in the early 1800s. It wasn't just about filling your belly anymore. Flavors were getting bolder and more complex. Now, hold on to your coonskin caps because we're about to take a walk on the wild side with William Henry Harrison. This frontier president had a taste for squirrel stew. Yes, you heard that right, squirrel stew. Back in the 19th century, this wasn't just any old backwoods meal. It was considered quite the delicacy. Harrison even used it as a campaign tactic, handing out free squirrel stew at political rallies. Talk about bringing home the bacon, or in this case, the squirrel. Remember when we teased Abraham Lincoln's favorite food? Well, get ready. It's not what you'd expect from such a towering historical figure. Honest Abe had a soft spot for corn cakes. These simple, hearty cakes were a staple in many American homes during the 19th century. Lincoln's love for this humble dish says a lot about his character and his connection to the common people. His intense appreciation for a banging corn cake meant that the ingredients would often run dry in his pantry. These presidential food choices tell us a lot about how America was changing in the 19th century. We started with Jackson's fancy Jezebel sauce, showing how our tastes were becoming more sophisticated. Then, we took a step back to frontier life with Harrison's squirrel stew, reminding us of our country's wild roots. And finally, we saw how Lincoln's corn cakes represented the simple, honest values that many Americans held dear. It's fascinating to see how these food preferences mirrored what was happening in the country at large. As America grew from a rural society into an emerging world power, our leaders' tastes evolved too. But even as things changed, there was always room at the table for dishes that reminded folks of home. As America stepped into the modern era, presidential palates took some surprising turns. Did you know that one commander-in-chief's favorite snack helped him kick a bad habit? Or that another's love for a certain dessert became a defining part of his public image? Let's dive into the culinary preferences of our 20th and 21st century leaders and see how their food choices reflected the changing face of America. During the Great Depression, Franklin D. Roosevelt found comfort in a simple yet satisfying meal: grilled cheese sandwiches. This humble dish became more than just a quick bite for FDR. It was a symbol of comfort during tough times. Imagine the president, facing the challenges of leading a nation through economic turmoil, finding solace in the warm, gooey goodness of melted cheese between toasted bread. It's a reminder that even in the darkest times, a little comfort food can go a long way. As we move forward in time, we see how regional identity started to play a bigger role in presidential food choices. John F. Kennedy, proud of his Massachusetts roots, had a particular fondness for New England clam chowder. This creamy, hearty soup wasn't just a tasty meal for JFK, it was a connection to his home and a reflection of the growing importance of regional identity in American politics. It's like Kennedy was saying, "I may be in the White House, but my heart is still in New England." Now, hold on to your sweet tooth, because we're about to talk about a president whose favorite snack became a part of his public image. Ronald Reagan loved jelly beans so much that they became a staple on his desk during his presidency. But here's the kicker. Reagan initially used them to help quit smoking. Talk about turning a healthy habit into a sweet success. These colorful candies became synonymous with Reagan's presidency, showing how even the smallest food preferences can shape a leader's public persona. As we move closer to our time, we see presidential food choices reflecting America's growing cultural diversity. Bill Clinton, for example, was known for his love of chicken enchiladas. This spicy, cheesy dish is a far cry from the simple fare of early presidents, showcasing how American palates were expanding to embrace flavors from around the world. Barack Obama kept things simple and homey with his preference for a pot of chili. This hearty, no-fuss meal resonated with Obama's approachable, family-oriented image. It's easy to picture the Obama family gathered around the dinner table, sharing a warm bowl of chili and discussing the events of the day. In recent years, we've seen presidential food choices become even more casual and relatable. Donald Trump made headlines with his preference for fast food, particularly the Filet-O-Fish from McDonald's. This choice connected with a nostalgic and casual approach to dining that many Americans could relate to. It's like Trump was saying, "I may live in the White House, but I still enjoy the same quick bites as everyone else." Our current president, Joe Biden, has a well-known affinity for ice cream. But it's not just any ice cream. Biden often favors local brands like Jenny's Splendid Ice Cream. This preference for a small, artisanal brand reflects a down-to-earth aspect of Biden's personality and connects with the growing trend of supporting local businesses. Wow, what a journey through America's culinary history. From Washington's humble hoe cakes to Biden's love for local ice cream, we've seen how presidential food choices reflect our nation's changing tastes and values. These meals tell us more than just what was on the White House menu. They give us a taste of each era's culture and challenges. Think about your own favorite foods. Do they connect to your family history or hometown? Maybe there's a dish that reminds you of a special time in your life. Our food choices say a lot about who we are and where we come from. So, here's some food for thought. What do you think the next president's favorite meal might be? Will it be a trendy health food, a regional specialty, or maybe even a futuristic lab-grown delicacy? Whatever it is, it'll surely give us a glimpse into America's future. Share your predictions and your own historical food facts in the comments.